So yeah, Scott Brooks is screwing up Deni Avdija. I mean, Scott Brooks is screwing up basically everything, but he's definitely screwing up with Deni. We all knew that Deni could be a playmaker going into the NBA. And if you look at some of his assists this season, he's already got quite a few impressive ones. In fact, it was kind of symbolic in the Celtics game. He wasn't touching the ball that much. He was just getting planted in the corner because that's what Scott Brooks is telling him to do. They've honestly used him more as a spot shooter than a playmaker. But in the Celtics game, he was basically just, on the corner the whole game. And then the ball finally finds him, and his defender was closing out to him. He gets by the closeout. He gets to the middle of the floor. He throws a great pass to Westbrook in the opposite corner, I believe it was. It led to a 3-ball. It went in, and it was this moment of like, yes, this is what Deni can be. He can be somebody who can actually make plays for you if you give him the opportunity. But Scott Brooks is just treating him as if he's a spot shooter. And credit the hell out of Deni because he's actually finding a way to still make it work, mainly because his 3-ball has been really good. He was 5 for 9 in the last game against Miami from 3. And, I mean, he's just been making these. His form, which we already knew his form was good. The question was his touch. The percentages really didn't back up how good the shot actually looked. But they're going in so far, and he has seemed to be okay with this just playing off the ball all the time thing. Whether he's okay with it if we fast forward some time, I don't know. But he has made it work so far. He's shooting 46% from 3, and I mean, if that's a sign that that 3 is going to go in, then hopefully if Scott Brooks is not the coach of the team or he finally realizes what he has in Deni to where Deni can actually do more with the ball, then the Wizards could have one of the best players in this draft. He's been good in the pick and roll so far. He had a great lob pass to Thomas Bryant in the Wolves game off the pick and roll. He had a really good scoop layup thing against Miami off the pick and roll. He's also brought the ball up in transition with a good amount of speed after grabbing a rebound, and he had one against Miami that looked great. He was one of the first guys down court. He had a nice Euro step, and then he just kind of short-armed the layup, but he can make plays with the ball in his hand. I mean, it's a basic thing. We knew it going into this whole thing, and Scott Brooks apparently didn't realize what he had in Deni Avdija. I mean, you look at the team's touches per game. Deni is 6th on the team with 33 a game. Rui has 41. Thomas Bryant's got 46. Ish Smith has 48. Westbrook has 100. And Beal's at like 75. And Deni is also averaging 1.8 seconds a touch. And a lot of that was from the Miami game where Westbrook and Beal did not play. I mean, that game he had 20 points. And even then, they still used him as a spot shooter a little too much. Like, he ended up shooting 9 threes, which, I mean, it's a good sign that he's taking some threes. I don't think it would be good for him to be taking none, but it's just way too far in that direction right now. There was another assist against Miami that was kind of interesting where he backed down Tyler Hero in the post a little bit before throwing a pass to Robin Lopez from like 7 feet away from the rim or so. I think there's potential for that given Deni's size. He looks a little bigger than I expected him to be when I'm watching him, even though I knew he was 6'9" and about 210, 215 or whatever. He's also already great at the make the extra pass in the swing offense type of stuff, which you would think is obvious, but not every player gets that type of thing. So on offense, Deni, he just simply needs to be allowed to work a little bit more, pick and roll, but also some sort of off-ball movement to get him going a little bit. Because, I mean, he can beat some defenders off the dribble, but it's not maximizing his skill set. He's not going to be like an amazing ISO player, even if he might be able to push some guys out of the way occasionally. Or even just some handoff plays up top. Just something to get him a little bit of momentum going to the rim and then allow him to survey the floor from around the free throw line or whatever. If we can talk about Deni's defense, it's been good. He honestly might be the best defensive player on the team right now. He has had a number of possessions where he helps out on the roll and then closes out to the shooter pretty okay. He had this one possession against Miami that was really good where it was a Duncan Robinson-Kelly Olynyk handoff, and he did a good job of getting around the handoff play to contain Duncan Robinson, and then he ran back to Olynyk and didn't allow the 3. Now, Olynyk still scored on him because he took a couple dribbles and just hit like a fadeaway, but it was good defense nonetheless. Against the Celtics, there were a couple of contests made over him, but he still defended him pretty well. He defended a Tatum sidestep three as well as you pretty much can without fouling him. And just his general awareness, just knowing who's open and who I got to close out on, he does a pretty good job at that stuff. I'm not going as crazy about him as I do when I think about Halliburton on those things. Like, he's probably a little worse than Halliburton on that stuff, but he's still very good for a rookie. I think the best play that I've seen from Deni so far was against the T-Wolves, where he anticipated that the driver was going to pass it to a guy who was kind of in the corner. Deni was around the baseline, steals the pass, brings it up himself in transition, and then posts up on his guy for half a second, and then just sort of bodies his way to the basket and finishes with a layup. And for some reason, Scott Brooks just has him sitting in the corner. I don't understand it. If I can provide any sort of a criticism for Deni, I guess on defense it would be he can be a little foul happy. And probably to go along with that, sometimes he's a little too scared to foul, where he just puts his arms up as a last resort. Like, he has good position on a guy, and instead of taking an extra swipe at the ball or whatever you might do to bother him, he just puts his arms up immediately. And, I mean, it's not horrible defense. It's certainly better than a lot of guys, but it is a moment of like, well, you might be able to do a little bit more here than just go right to that. I guess the other thing, too, is there have been a couple of times where it seems like Deni could help out the initial defender. Like, the whole, like, stand on the wing but reach in for half a second on the ball handler just to slow him down for a little bit. There have been a couple opportunities where he's been able to do that, but he hasn't done it, which, again, in the grand scheme of things to work on defense, that's pretty down there. I mean, the fact that he's good on that side of the floor is the most important thing. So, little things like that. I mean, the guy turned 20 a week ago, so that's what we're dealing with. But the big thing is still, Scott Brooks has got to let him work. I mean, he is clearly a guy who can make plays and get inside and create offense for himself, create offense for others. Yeah, he's not going to be some ISO 15 times a game guy, but he's way more equipped to do stuff than just stand in the corner, which has been the main thing. I mean, his usage rate for the season is 11%, which is lower than guys like Anthony Simons, PJ Washington, Quinn Cook, Alfonso McKinney, Svi Mikhailuk. You see what I'm getting at. And all those guys have played actual minutes. They haven't played like one game each. So yeah, Scott Brooks, you got to let Deni do his thing a little bit more. To think about the Wizards in general, the Beal trade, does that happen this season? I don't know. I still feel like it's not a given that the return for Beal is better than just trying to build around Beal. But if you think that you don't have enough time left before he becomes a free agent, then I guess that might be the only option.